Do you know, because we have a teacher that teaches us African dance, and he's always telling us about the roots, but how do you feel like how's dancing, how much roots?
Yeah.
It's African dancing.
None. There's a misnomer, misinterpretation, and idea that a lot of things spring out of Africa from the United States, but it's very, very vague understanding and very hard to come by because one showy thing that happened in the United States is that the blacks were taken away from Africans, from their identity. You have the William Lynch occurrence, and that's in books. William Lynch's process was to eliminate the idea of your African experience, and they did this very hard to Africans in the United States, correct? Mm-hmm. And most of us are mixed with natives, which were very hard to stop and conquer in their culture. And this is the underlying thing that comes out of the United States, the native experience, especially in hip-hop. Especially in blues, because blues wasn't slow, blues went fast, and the idea of the rhythm was different from an African rhythm, which is somewhat repetitive from understanding. When you hear African songs, it's very repetitive, and some of the sounds is even different from what we were, early day slaves were using instruments to create. There's a song called Big Beat by Billy Squier. It goes like this. This was the anthem, not an anthem, but the main sound of what hip hop was in music and in like expression. And you start screaming, I got the big beat. It's rock. But rock is a sound that is a part of the native experience. These rhythms are very native. Powwow and stuff like this exist. So I'm going so further into it to give you an idea that
Native American, not Native Africa.
Yeah.
Like Indians.
Yeah, the Indians.
Yeah.
This is the thing. James Brown was an Apache Indian.
Really? I know.
Yeah, it's in Wikipedia. Oh. His screaming and ow is what the natives were very famous for. They were crazy. The Mardi Gras Parade is a documentary based on the Mardi Gras Parade. If you can, it says the name of it was the parade, the Native American, or the parade for the Native American Mardi Gras, something like that. But it's a documentary by 3 black scholars, but they're mixed, they're natives. To say that the beginning of the parade was based on, this is in Louisiana, it's one of the biggest parades in America, it's like the carnival. Was the idea of the natives going from one, at a time of a ritual celebration, from one area to the next in this location of New Orleans, and they would get dressed in their adornment, feathers and colors to be impressive. And if they encountered or came across another group, it's an automatic fight. But the fight wasn't like, it was yes, and it was like a party if you think about it when you look at it in those standards. They were serious, like we're gonna kill each other. So this is the idea of that funk and all this stuff. This is the main. There are some African underlying things that exist in the United States, but the top of it is very Native American. It's not African.
Because he told us like, you know, when Africans sew, it's almost like a heel toe.
Almost.
Because you take away the soil or what it's called, and then you put the seeds in, and then you can like farm to step on top of it to make the
yeah, but you could. I mean,
there's something called the shout dance, the ring shout, in the South Carolinas, which is an African population from I forget what part of Africa. And the ring shout, this is a dance based on, it's a mix of native experience, but definitely African, so there's not one over the other. But how they stomp, and how they move in a ring, and this makes the music. And they move like this. And everything is down. Like when the African dance, the African is down here. And when they stomp, it moves like this. And sometimes it'll come up, and somebody will go in the middle of the circle, like idea of what's going in. But the ring shout is based on the African connection and the native. Well, my point of explaining this is because when they stand upright and start doing, this is when it gets into native, because they were really, and then even Irish to a certain extent, and it goes into another area. But the positioning is different. Almost every African dances I've seen, everybody is like down here.
Yeah.
Against when natives are, they're up, and they're like.
Yeah, wartime.
It's war. It's a different power, rhythm of power. When you see it and you can do it.
The whole African thing is like tricky because it's like they didn't see Africa. So how could they have gotten those moves? So then there's this idea of like retention of characteristics, meaning like through black people there's like a underlying similarity in how they would move and how they act and like culturally like this. And that's one idea that could be relevant or could be fact. I don't know. I sometimes believe it because you can see similarities in movements around, but then you can go far off somewhere into like a cave under a rock and see it too and say, well, it looks like this move. But then it looks like this move, but then how does it get from Africa to Brooklyn? You know? Because it's
something and just got inspired.
Nah, it's not really, because if you talk to the people who are like doing it, they weren't seeing that, you know? It's like then there's a lot of stuff from Kung Fu. People say I'm inspired by martial arts, or I'm inspired. It's more of a not so much to think the moves, but the mindset. And then the mindset will force you to do moves a certain way, or force you to stomp versus like tap, like this. You know what I mean? It's that sense of how you're thinking in your head. That more like war, like not violence, but like aggression. And I think that's what is the necessary like connecting bond between everything. Is that like, oh, here I am, I'm under oppression, now I'm trying to step up. You know, versus like ballet, which is like da 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 da, and it's like, you know, it's a very different kind of thing. But I don't know about that. I heard all this African stuff, and I used to think it was very true, and then I started to realize, nah, it doesn't really fit together. You know, because it's like, well, they didn't see Africa, and like you were talking, like, how can you say that a dance would come from a way you sew or do like a job? You know what I mean? It's like, well, I eat like this, so it doesn't mean I'm popping. Because I'm eating to my, you know what I mean? It's like you can kind of make it up as you go along with those kind of things. So of course the people from Africa always want to be like, well, it came from us. It's Africa. It's this. But there's a big difference between blacks in America and Africans. Like we don't even sometimes get along. We don't even think the same. We're just the same color. Because I know when I came to Norway, I met like African people. We were like far off different. The only difference was like the music, like we like hip hop or we like this or we like that. But really we're very, very different. It's very different. Like Africans, you know, when they get mad, they don't get loud, they don't get aggressive, they get more quiet and calm.
But the African movement is more in.
Yeah.
And it's like.
That was me talking.
So
Fox.
Europe with the French, they move like everything is like kind of in here. Americans don't move like that. I would think it's more square, and if I give you geometrical figures, circular with Africans, Americans is more triangular and square, and even rectangular. When you see like somebody rocking, if you don't get this position, there's something wrong for when we're coming from New York. But there are Africans that I've seen in France, they don't have this bow back, this bow. This bow is what?
Attitude.
It's attitude. It's also based, for my idea, it's based on a bow and arrow. You shoot it. You know, in the native experience. We bow, and it's idea of movements which develop a force of power. And whatever it is you do. So different postures you can see with different people where they come from, and if it's connection. Just by a different posture. How do we stand against and how the Africans stand? I've been observing, as I said, I've been observing the Frenchmen and how they walk as they dance and have this like walk like this. Then when we come from the States, most black men, guaranteed, or even Spanish, we have like this like.
Yeah, yeah, we've seen that.
It's a different edge.
I don't walk like that.
So when you see these simple, simplistic movements against the people and how, you know, if they are the same in that relative move and dance, you can begin to decide. You really can begin to decide. And like stomping, and stomping in what they call farmers, whatever, in the house. And if we go like here, we're not going to be like this. Unless we took Senegalese, and there's a lot of black Americans that took Senegalese dancing in New York City, Harlem, New York. There are very much a lot of women that teach that. That doesn't mean that it's an African movement, because when it was done in the clubs, people that didn't take it it's more like you see the tap dancer. There's the people there's a dance, social dance activity in London. Jazz fusion?
Jazz fusion, yeah.
Jazz fusion. Now how they look is very different from how the people in France look. Dancing today, unless they do jazz rock, then they almost look the same. They're getting this stuff that comes out of the States. They're getting the image from the States. So the posture is almost the same. Against if you see a person from Africa who doesn't know these experiences and they do these, like stomping on heel toe, his posture is going to be different, so you can see, oh, there's a little change. There's definitely a little change. And then the important thing is the Spanish dances from Cuba, related to that song, into salsa, into Puerto Rican salsa, into how salsa got big in the world. That's a very part of movement in the States.